Hi, my name is Aiden, and in this tutorial, I'll be walking you through how you can create and use course lists in TracCloud. Course lists are essentially dynamic collections of sections. So rather than having to link every consultant and center to individual sections, you can just link them to a course list instead. Consultant and center specialties are their primary use, but they can also tie into a couple other features in TracCloud, like availabilities and reports, which I'll talk more about towards the end of this video. There are three different locations you can create course lists from. There's of course the main course list listing that shows you all lists in the system, but they can also be created directly from consultant and center records too. I'll be showing all three routes, but I'm going to start with the consultant process first. Go to Other, Listings, then Staff, then click on the consultant you want to manage the course list of. Under the General tab, scroll down to Course List of Specialties. You can link consultants to existing regular course lists if you need, but we usually recommend you give each consultant their own separate course list. This is so that you'll never be in a situation where modifying one person's specialties inadvertently affects another's. Each consultant's specialties should ideally be independent of each other. Because of this, you'll always find a unique preset course list in this drop-down menu for the consultant you're currently looking at. So for Dave Smith here, I can see at the very bottom, Course list for Dave Smith. This course list won't appear as an option for any other consultants. I'm going to select that one, save, and then we can click this Edit button to start managing that list. Inside this new course list, we can start adding course list items. You can think of these items as parts of a query or like filters. If I add an item for the subject Math, and then an asterisk in the course field, this means this course list will contain all active math sections. Active meaning sections that are linked to a term code that is currently active in TracCloud. A course list will not include sections from inactive terms. When you're building these course lists, there are two different approaches you can take. Both are valid and can result in the same list of sections in the end, but one will usually be easier to manage than the other. It just depends on what sections you want to include. One approach is to only include the courses you want, making exclusions secondarily. So you might just add a math and accounting, and you wouldn't have to worry about English courses because they were never added in the first place. The other approach is to start by including everything and then make exclusions for what you don't want. So you can add all and then exclude English, and the resulting course list would include math, accounting, chemistry, and so on. As an example, let's say we need this course list for Dave to include all math, accounting, and biology sections except Math 350. If we take the first approach, I'll add an item for math, then an item for accounting, then biology, then an item for just Math 350, but we'll exclude that one with this toggle over here on the right. And we're done. 4 items to build that list. Now let's take the other approach. We'll start by adding all items, then I'll exclude chemistry, and sociology, and English, and philosophy, and photography, and anthropology, and nursing, and psychology. There we go. That's an alternative way to achieve the exact same course list as before. Obviously, this is what you want to avoid, so you'll have to make a judgment call on which approach will work best for the course list you are trying to build. For a scenario where you'd want to take the second approach, let's go back to that English example I mentioned before. If you want a course list that includes everything but English, the second approach would look like this. Just 2 items, nice and easy to manage. Whereas the first approach would look like this, obviously less than ideal. Going back to Dave here, we'll stick with the first method for their courses. So far, I've only looked at the subject and course number fields, but you can be as specific as you need. When you have an item to include math, you can make that all math like this, or only Math 350, or only Math 350 section 510. You can get even more specific with a specific term or faculty too, but ideally you should keep these items as non-specific as possible without adding unintended sections. That way, as new sections are imported into the system, the course list will pick them up automatically rather than requiring you go back and manually add them. This goes double for the term field. Once you specify a term here, that means that course list item will not apply to any other terms, including upcoming ones. So you should only select a term if that course list item is temporary and you expect it to not apply to the next semester. Inside the drop-down menu for these items, you also have these icons at the top. The asterisk is your wildcard, like we've already seen, and there's no difference between leaving a field blank and selecting an asterisk. Both will give you the same result. The question mark lets you manually type in that field. You'll usually do this if you need to include some courses or sections, but not all. So for Dave, if I wanted to link him to all Math 200 courses specifically, rather than adding each 200 course individually, I can click the question mark and type in 2 asterisk, so this one item will now include all 200 level courses. Another option you have available in course lists is the ability to add an entire other course list as an item. So if you click Add Other Course List and choose, let's say, our Biology 100 and Chemistry 100 list, it will add all the sections from that list into this one, rather than you having to build out the same items again. You can also exclude all sections from that list just like a regular item. For Dave's list though, I'm going to keep this simple and stick with what I had before. Before I leave this first course list, I do want to note a couple other minor tips to make managing these lists easier. First, you can copy existing course list items using this button on the right. So if you have a lot of similar items, you can duplicate one a bunch of times and then edit the copies. And second, if you're working with exclusions a lot, rather than manually building every exclusion, you can simply save the course list and scroll down to the sections list below. This shows you all the sections that are currently in this course list, and then you can click the Remove button on the right to instantly make an exclusion. You can choose how specific you want to be, if you want to remove the entire subject, just that course number, or just that one section. You also have the same options, but just for your current term. Again, you generally shouldn't use those ones unless you want that item to not apply next semester. Now that we have Dave's course list done, we'll go to our center next. Returning to the dashboard, I'm going to go to Other Options, Profiles. Then I'll click my profile, and we'll look at the Learning Center first. In this drop-down menu, you can select any course list you've already created, or if you leave this blank and click the Edit button, that will let you instantly create a new course list. I'll do that here. For this one, I'm going to call it Learning Center Course List, but you can go with any naming convention you'd like. For the contents, I'll go with one of the examples I mentioned earlier. I'll add everything except English. And that's it. I'll save that. I'll go back to my center and refresh, and then I can select my Learning Center course list here. With the consultant and center course lists done, we'll go to the final and arguably main location where you can manage your course lists, the course list listing. Starting from the dashboard again, we're going to go to Other, Listings, then Course Lists. This will show you all the course lists in your system so you can manage them from one central location. Or you can create new course lists from the hamburger menu. For each list, you can also see where it's being used. So if you have a list that you aren't sure you need anymore, you can check here before deleting it. The listing can also be used for batch adding items to course lists. Let's say we want to add this Math 100 exclusion from Jose's course list to Craig, Mike, and Grant's lists. I can select each of theirs, then I'll open Jose's, and I'll click this arrow button next to that item. That'll copy that item to those 3 other lists for us. Back on the listing, you'll also find this Process Specialties button. This button will refresh all course lists to make sure they include all current sections. This also happens automatically overnight after the import process runs, and is exactly the same as the Process Specialties button that you'd find during the semester changeover. Typically, the only time you'll need to click this is if you've recently created a non-enrolled course, or if you've made a manual change to any section records in the system. Beyond consultants and center specialties, course lists can also be used for other purposes. For example, searching for registrations. If you go to the registrations listing, under the hamburger menu, you'll find an option where you can search by course list to only see registrations relating to those sections. You can also use course lists in reports in a similar way. If I open the Visits By report, I can add an additional search for on course list and select one of my course lists here. This will then only show me visits linked to those sections. Another use for course lists is in availabilities. You're probably already aware that when you're building an availability on the schedule, you can link that time slot to a specific section or use a wildcard to be less specific. So regardless of this option I'm about to discuss, you could say that this time slot is only available for Math 355.10 or any Math 350 section or any math course period. Or if we leave it blank, it's available for any sections that the consultant specializes in based on their personal course list. We already know that Dave here is linked to math, accounting, and biology, so let's say we just want this availability to be linked to math and accounting. What you cannot do in this field is something like accounting or math. This won't work. So if you need to be this specific with this field, there's an option you can enable that will let you choose a course list here instead. You can create a course list that contains math and accounting, and then select the course list using this search glass icon on the right. It's important to note that this list of options only contains course lists linked to your profile. If your course list is linked to all profiles, it won't show up here. If you want to enable this feature, go to Other Options, Preferences, then Search Availability Options, Additional Settings, and set this option here to Yes and Save. You'll see that new search glass icon in your availabilities going forward. If you have any questions about building your course lists, you can reach out to our help desk at helpdesk.go-redrock.com or give us a call at 480-752-8533.